Do you really need a Toyota to go off-road? We've got a couple folks with some pretty kitted out Nissans that would say there are other options out there. And this is the first of those trucks. Of course, it's the new generation of Frontier. And this truck is pretty kitted out. Aftermarket suspension, lifted, bigger tires, camper on the back, all of the things that you would expect from an off-road truck. We'll talk to these guys a little bit about the part support, strong points and weak points of these trucks. But the second truck that we've got is a Titan swapped Frontier. And what that means is it has Nissan Titan suspension components, which give it some extra travel and a lot of extra height. As you can tell, this truck has a pretty good bit of tire under it. Could be a really capable setup. So we're gonna see how these trucks perform as compared to a lot of the other vehicles that we've run on this trip. Now our first real obstacle here is one of our favorites. It's the Razor Rock, something we've been running for a long time. And it's one of our favorites because if I stand in this ditch right before the rock face, it's coming up to basically shoulder height on me. So this obstacle is no joke. Nothing ever, we all know that nothing ever looks as hard on camera as it is in real life, but getting up this is a bit of a task, no doubt. Now first up we have George coming toward the Razor Rocks here in his beautiful Frontier. This is the one with the Titan suspension components, so we should see a decent amount of articulation here.
Little bit driver.
And again, this perspective shows you just how aggressive this rock feature is. I mean, it's close to the height of the hood. So he's rolling right up, plenty of clearance. No issues so far. He's got his rear locker kicked on. It's really necessary to have, at minimum, a rear locker going to be able to get up this feature. And here's where he's going to start picking up this rear tire. Look at that. Nice. Beautiful.
Good job.
Expertly done. And this is actually apparently one of, if not George's very first time off-roading his relatively recent truck build. So good job on him wheeling. That was a great example of how to get up the Razor Rocks. Great job. That was awesome driving. That's exactly how you get up that feature. How'd that feel?
Man, that felt incredible. Like, first time, so.
Yeah. Pretty excited to see how capable it is.
Yeah, I didn't know, these trucks can do that, so it's amazing what they can do. It's, nice suspension.
Now here we have Chad. This is one of the guys from All Dogs Off-Road who does a lot of the kitting out on these trucks. And his truck is set up a little bit more like an Overlander, less so a pure rock crawler, although these guys do still some pretty serious rock crawling. So not quite as much tire, not quite as much height on this. This is not a Titan swap suspension system, but he's still got a nice set of Radflow shocks. It's not a stock height vehicle. He's got some pretty serious rock sliders here. Yeah, and as you can see, you get some serious angle. Anytime that rear wheel drops into this valley, you get pretty seriously articulated, which is what makes this so difficult. Because you look at it from there, and from that height to the top of this, it doesn't really seem like it's that tall, but you've got this unbelievable rut that's right in front of it that your rear passenger wheel drops into, and it makes this a really challenging feature. Here we go. Nice. Yeah, it's definitely burying the back end pretty good.
It's a perfect example of what makes the Titan swap better in these off-road scenarios. It's not that we're lacking capability as a vehicle, we're just lacking height.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely it's tucking that hitch pretty deep, pretty hard onto the ground. it's a challenging feature for sure.
So I think what we can
it's
do
a good example.
to get you up there is we'll bring you back, and we're going to keep you a little bit more to the right.
You can also go left here, and that ledge there is also.
I know you're so far up, bro.
Nice.
Got it.
Now hook or just straight?
You want to come up?
Yeah, I mean, you could probably. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
There you go. Alright, back up just a little bit so you don't hit this big rock. Won't matter because a little. Okay. Perfect. Good. Get back and you're out of here.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, so that Titan swap makes a difference. For sure. If you're looking for any trails to go run yourself, be sure to check out onX Off-Road. You can use that software in order to see where the trail is, how challenging it is. You can see pictures of it, what kinds of vehicles you want to run it in. We do exactly that for this trail and every other trail that we've run here in Colorado, so check them out. Now we also want to talk a little bit about what all you can do with these Nissan trucks as far as modifying them. And Chad here can explain to us a little bit about what they do, because your company, All Dogs, specializes mostly in Nissans, right?
Correct. Nissan is our biggest market by far. We do a little bit of other stuff, but Nissan probably makes up at least 95% of our business. Frontiers are a fantastic platform to build. You can be super mild, just a simple truck, grocery getter.
Yeah.
You can go all the way up to what's essentially a long travel setup. This is what's called a Titan swap, and it's basically like a budget long travel, similar to like running a Total Chaos setup on a Toyota Tacoma or a 4Runner. It's going to increase your track width by about 3 inches on either side and takes your wheel travel up to roughly 10 inches up front, which makes a very big difference off-road, which you guys will see here.
And is it pretty easy to get all that stuff to bolt up? What's that process like?
Correct. So Nissan was fantastic to the aftermarket. What they did was they basically used the frame mounting points between the Titan, the Frontier, the Xterra, and then the R51 Pathfinder. So you can basically take Titan lower control arms and an aftermarket Titan upper control arm, slap it on, it directly bolts right in, no cutting, no fabbing, nothing. It all goes right in, then you run a custom coil over because your lengths change a little bit, and then you run either tie rod extensions, or on second gen Frontiers you can run Titan inners and outers. But just simple, budget friendly upgrade. Now this is a very nice build. George is running Radflow 2.5 Resi shocks front and rear.
Yeah.
But you could basically do a full Titan swap for roughly around $3,000. Whereas if you were to try and do the same setup on a Toyota, you'd be spending at least $8,000 between the Total Chaos setup and then the custom coilovers you got to buy and so on. They're just really a fantastic value for a truck, and you can build them to be just as capable, just as stout, and they really last just as long if you do your preventative maintenance.
So you would say around $3,000 for the Titan swap and the Radflow suspension setup that's on this?
Not for this one. So these would be, this is probably going to be around $4,500, just because these are upgraded coilovers. Typically our Fox 2.0s or Radflow 2.0s, just 2-inch shock body diameter non-resi, those are going to be around the $3,000-ish mark.
Which still in the realm of doing a lift kit, suspension, upgrading components, that's pretty affordable.
Exactly.
You can easily spend more than that on most rigs. And generally, when you're doing the Titan swap,
I'm assuming you're going to be doing a lift with that as well?
Correct, yeah. And a Titan swap typically is going to run about 3.5 to 4 inches lift.
Okay.
Now, you can set them to be no lift if you want to. You can basically set them to whatever height you want, but most guys are going to run about 3.5 to 4 inches just for the clearance and the height.
And what tire size-wise are you typically running when you do this kind of swap?
Most guys will run a 33. So on the third gens, you're going to typically have a 17-inch wheel. That'll be like a 285/70 17.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of skinny 33s. On my truck, which we'll talk about, I'm assuming, a little bit, I'm running a 255/80 17, which is like a 33 by 10.5 kind of, sort of.
And then so this truck is built up, I would say, I guess the way that you guys would describe it, maybe a little more affordably than going all out with this truck.
Correct.
So as far as suspension on this, what have you done?
Yeah, so this is just a basic extended travel setup. And this is going to be about 2.5 inches of lift. My truck was previously Titan swap, but when I added my camper, I wanted to bring the height down just so that I wasn't super tippy on the trails.
Right.
And I'm not off-roading as much as I'm camping nowadays, so it just made more sense, and it's a little bit more practical to run the 2.5 setup that I've got right now.
And then as far as underbody protection, rock sliders, things like that outside of suspension, is part availability pretty good on that as well?
It's actually excellent, and it's getting better every year. Rock sliders, skid plates, everything. There are tons of options out now.
You've got a pretty
10 years ago.
Pretty solid set of sliders here on your rig. Where do these come from?
Yep, those are white knuckle sliders. They're out of California. They're fantastic. For skid plates, I'm running Sphere skid plates. They're aluminum.
And then if you want to go all the way toward doing like a front locker on these trucks, is there availability for those kind of parts as well?
Yep, we stock Harrop e-lockers out of Australia. You can run an ARB air locker. I'm a bigger fan of electric versus air lockers, but
some simplicity in that, at least. So aside from that, if someone was going to start a basic build on one of these Frontiers, where would you say are the biggest areas to start as far as just getting this to be a trail-ready rig that you can bring on at least some mild to moderate off-road areas?
Just about a 2-inch lift and 33s, and you can do that. The lift you can do. We have options that start at like $340 up to $1,200, and that's going to be like a budget price to mid-tier price point. And then a 33-inch tire. I think those are probably running $1,200 to $1,500 depending on the brand and so on. But you can have a very capable rig. You don't need gobs of lift to get around some pretty moderate to difficult trails.
With this particular truck build here, what was kind of your intention as far as what you were trying to build it for?
So I actually haven't had the luxury to build it in the style that I want until recently. It started out just with a basic Coney 2-inch lift kit that we sell. And then right from there, I think about 3 months later, we started doing R&D work on Titan swapping the third gens. This was the first truck ever to be Titan swapped. And ran that for I think about 1.5 years before going back to a Coney setup and having the camper added. So this is getting pretty close to what would be my ideal, like what I would build the truck for.
What would be the main points that you think you would change ideally?
First would be regearing. I would change the gearing, get to 408s once there's tuning support for the re-gear. I don't know, that's probably going to be pretty close to the finish out with this build, aside from any other prototyping R&D work that comes up.
Do you think you would ever go the steel bumper and winch route?
Only if I really damaged or dented something. I like to keep things lightweight and simple.
Fair enough, yeah.
If I hit something and then have reason to, then absolutely. But for the time being, probably not.
But yeah, no, it's cool to have both these trucks here, because the truck behind us with a Titan swap is set up like more of a dedicated rock crawler, and this one is set up like I think a lot of kind of overland guys would set something up. And like you said, a little less height since you're not on the Titan swap suspension, not on as tall of tires. So all of that plus the camper would make for a pretty tall rig.
Correct, and tippy.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to be building an off-road vehicle, a Titan Swap is going to be the ideal.
Yeah.
You want to drive?
Yeah, sure, why not? I have had the chance to drive the Frontier off-road in stock form, but obviously this is pretty far from what it was when it was stock. I'm sure the driving dynamics, though, in general, pretty similar.
It's similar. The tricky thing is when you get one of these trucks right off the factory floor, it just runs down the highway like a speeding bullet. It's just planted straight. It's great. You start making changes to it and you're making compromises.
Yeah, so it's all the kind of stuff that you would expect as far as building an off-road or going to a bigger tire, lifting your suspension, and especially too if you're going to put any kind of rooftop tent system, you're going to have more drag.
Exactly.
Fuel economy is going to get worse, but that's all the kind of stuff that we expect.
Yep, I would say that our sales for lift kits on 3rd gen Frontiers is probably overtaken 2nd gens. I mean, it's just that market is, or that segment of the market is growing aggressively.
I just wish they would come up with a new Xterra.
Agreed. Every Nissan post that I see on Instagram, I comment and tag Nissan USA. If not to bring the Xterra back, they manufacture what's called the Terra in Asian and Middle Eastern markets, which is basically like Nissan's version of a 4Runner. It's just nice and clean and simple. And it's been manufactured, I think, since 2018, if I remember correctly. The real loss for Nissan is they basically miss out on this entire overlanding fad for off-roading.
Yeah.
You know, when they discontinued the Xterra in 2015 and then changed the Pathfinder into a crossover. I had a lot of hope that with the new version of the Pathfinder in 22 that they were going to make it body on frame, make it a proper SUV, but they didn't.
It's great that they've got this Frontier as a platform for building an off-roader, but not everybody wants a pickup truck. And there's still a huge community out there for the Xterra, even as long as it's been out of production.
Yep. See, Nissan, the Xterra is on that upward swing right now, where if you find a clean 2014 or 2015 Pro 4X,
which is
that'll command $25,000 or $30,000.
Yeah, most of them are pretty well used.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And you've got a really cool camper setup that's on the back here. Tell me a little bit about this.
Yep, this is a Super Pacific camper. They're based out of Portland, Oregon, all made in the USA. It's going to be messy in here, guys, so you have to forgive me.
Oh yeah, it's a piece that's actually getting used.
Yes, used very hard. All aluminum construction. It's built like an airplane, so all riveted. There's no welding.
You've got seals all the way around here.
Yeah, everything is sealed. They're up in the PNW, so water intrusion and rain is a big deal for them.
Yeah.
And then also venting. So if we have time later, we'll pop the top and I'll show you guys. But they've built a ton of venting, and so you don't get condensation in the mornings like you would in a tent. Just really well built, but Super Pacific isn't the only company that's making for the 3rd gen Frontiers, and even on the 2nd gen Frontiers there are options now too.
Do you want to pop it open, show the inside?
Sure,
if you want.
Absolutely.
Because it seems like typically one of the nice things about campers like these is that they're pretty quick to set up and to pack back down.
Correct.
Oh, I see you got some extra springs.
Yeah, it's a delivery.
Yeah.
That I'll be making.
Well, and the other thing that's nice about these kind of camper setups is that you can still maintain the use of your bed.
Yep. I was in Moab and the dust gets into the detents here.
Yeah.
So it makes it difficult to open, but that's it right there.
Yeah, and I see what you mean. Looks like some of the vents underneath the flap, so they won't necessarily get rained into, but you can still get a little air in and out.
Exactly, yep.
Yeah, it looks like a really nice setup. Yeah, so as far as part availability for doing either an off-road build as a pure rock crawler or an overlanding build, really seems like if you do want to go the Nissan Frontier route, you have that as an option. And like you were saying, as time goes on, more and more of these parts should be available.
Yep, it's only getting better and better. It's a great time to be a Nissan owner right now.
Yeah, that's rad. That's good news for people who've got Frontiers.
Yep.
And as far as powertrain modifications, you guys typically do a whole lot there, mostly leave it as is?
We're not doing a lot with powertrain at the moment. We did actually just buy a 3.8 liter short block from our local Nissan dealer. I think that there was a pricing error in the catalog. We bought a full short block for like $800. It should probably
not a
be
bad deal, yeah.
at least $2,000 more expensive, but we're going to do a teardown on that, and I'm going to take measurements on the rods, pistons, and so on, and start looking at some performance parts for it.
Yeah.
Right now, I've just jumped into the Titan swap truck, which is pretty cool. And you know, you actually do a lot of the engineering behind some of these components that you guys are selling, right?
Yeah, so I've worked with Chad. Me and Chad work together a lot on figuring out, you know, different necessities that Nissan is missing, you know, R&Ding, you know, whether it be support structures or coming up with new suspension components, whether it be, you know, shocks all the way out to shackle. We, you know, work together as a team to really come up with these different products.
I also, too, for this video, I want to make very clear that these guys are not paying us anything for this video, so we're not obligated to plug any products here, but it is just cool to report on the fact that you can do some of these suspension modifications on these vehicles for as little money as these guys have done these systems for, because again, a lot of vehicles you get into nicer suspension kits, especially dramatically increasing how much travel you got, and you're looking at a lot of money. These are actually pretty reasonably priced setups, and it's largely because of all of that crossover between the Frontier, the Titan, and it sounds like even other Nissan products. There's a lot of crossover.
We have a Infiniti QX56 that we've lifted extended travel all the way around, and we actually swapped the rear differential with a Z370 3.69 gearing rear differential.
No
and
kidding.
then we took and we got an M205, and we put an M205 in the front with a 369 gearing as well.
Look, we do this so often and have done this for so long that the vehicles you typically see on a trail, we've seen a million times over, and so having the option to do something a little different and see a different kind of vehicle on a trail, try driving something different on a trail, is fun for us.
So there you have it. If you want an alternative to the Toyota Tacoma, there are options for you out there as far as lifts, skid plates, sliders, campers, anything that you might be looking for. The product availability is there. So let us know what you think down in the comments below. Would you go for the Frontier, or are you sold on the new Tacoma? That's all for this video, and we'll see you in the next.